All right, good morning, everybody. This is a quick disclaimer for those of you who are watching and wondering what I am doing looking at a compilation of football tape that's broadcast by another entity. This video is posted here at the Rookie Scouting Portfolio Film Room. They are not hosted on any server that I have, and the original video content's not considered the property of the Rookie Scouting Portfolio. The videos are considered to be used under the Fair Use Doctrine of the United States Copyright Law, Title 17, U.S. Code Sections 107 to 118. That's for you guys in the black suit and ties. Videos are used on this site for the editorial and educational purposes only, and the Rookie Scouting Portfolio and its staff do not claim ownership of any original video content. Rookie Scouting Portfolio and its staff don't use the said video clips in advertisements, marketing, or direct financial gain. And all the video content in this is considered owned by the individual broadcasting companies. What I'm looking at generally with my guests are 10-minute clips of cut-ups of highlights of plays, and basically talking about what we see and analyzing it, breaking it down for educational purposes only. So with that mouthful finished, I'm Matt Waldman. This is the Rookie Scouting Portfolio Film Room, the RSP Film Room, episode number 34. And I am joined by a guest that I've been looking forward to having on for a couple months now, which is Scott Bischoff of GM Junior and Footballguys.com. Scott is an analyst with GM Junior, and they do just excellent work. I would almost say they're kind of like the 33rd scouting department for the NFL, even if the NFL, depending on, you know, they're a group of guys who work with Russ Landy, who is a former scout, works for the Big Ten Network, and they have delivered some excellent insights over the years. And I would encourage you, if you are a diehard draftnik, to purchase their product. It is really done in terrific detail, and you know, having Scott on the show, I'm hoping to have the other guys on the show as well at some point, but it's nice to have Scott on, and we're going to be watching one Cam Erving. So Scott, with this long wind up here, thanks for joining me. Can you tell everyone a little bit about how you got into this and a little bit more about GM Junior?
Well, thank you for the GM Junior stuff. I appreciate that, and I've been looking forward to this too. This is going to be fun. Obviously, following your work and buying your product and all that stuff, it's fantastic. You know, GM Junior, we're a group of guys who, I mean, obviously you have to love football to do this, right? And Russ is a great guy to work for. I know that there's a lot out there on Russ, and people want to, you know, bang him for, you know, this and that. But if you really dig deep into what we do and the kind of evaluations we do, you'll see that there's a difference in some of what we've provided. And I'll just say that, and people can go find it on their own. You know, we're not guys who look at you know, 15 minutes of a player and form an opinion. We're looking at 5, 6, 7, 10 games to get a you know, a real good feel of what we think. And we've got a good group of guys, and you know, hopefully you'll get Josh and Jordan on, and you know, it's a good group. You know, I think we're going to have a website coming soon, and we'll see what happens with that. You know, it's a little bit up in the air at this point, but it is coming. My guess is it'll be available probably for next draft season. So
Right.
We'll just kind of continue on with what we're doing. You know.
So how'd you get into it?
You know, we talked a little bit before. I had a life-altering experience when I was 26, and it really, you know, I was in a cab in Chicago, and we got broadsided. There's a stop sign that was supposed to be up. It wasn't up, so there was no stop sign, and we got broadsided going about 45, and I got ejected and thrown down the street. And so life changed dramatically for me as a 26-year-old, and now that's 19 years ago. So you know. I had to move on from what I was doing at the time, which was tough, but it took me a long time to decide that, you know, sitting for long periods of the day was just not good for me. So I started working on a fantasy show in Detroit in 2004, just a radio station. It was funny because I listened to the station one day, and I could tell that the host who was doing the show was having a very hard time answering the questions because he just wasn't writing them down. Right, it was before we had all this technology, so I could tell he was somebody would call in and say, I've got this receiver or this receiver. Who do you start? And he wouldn't answer with either of them. so I just volunteered to help, and it just kind of started there. And then I met Tom Kowalski. I don't know if you remember Killer, who was a Lions beat writer.
Yeah.
One of the greatest guys I've ever met. Just tell it to you straight kind of guy, And then I talked a little bit with Dave Rosano at some point, and just kind of moved my way into more scouting and less fantasy stuff. Even though I'm still doing the fantasy stuff, but it's more scouting-driven fantasy stuff. So that's kind of how I fell into it. And I've been. I think this is my 4th year with Russ, and it's just a great fit. So for me, where I'm at in my life, for at the station I'm in, it's more important that the relationships are you know what I mean. That's where the value in it is for me, is that the relationships I've made are very valuable to me,
yeah.
And they're going to stay that way. So that's kind of where my motivation is in this.
No, it's great.
That makes sense.
It's a great story, because certainly it is. It's about, I think, for everybody in this type of process, whether you're someone who wants to study film, or whether you're a football player, or whether you're just, you're working your 9 to 5, or you have your own different career, we're all trying to find ourselves, and we're all trying to find out, what makes us tick, so that we can present ourselves in the world in a way that we feel good about at the end of the day. And I certainly have been there myself as someone who wanted to be a musician in life, and realized that I was working my tail off. I worked harder being a musician than I do right now doing the rookie scouting portfolio, and I think that if you've read the RSP, that's probably a little hard to believe, but but I actually did work harder in the first 2.5 years of my college life than I ever did in the rest of my life since, and it was a very frustrating experience. And very rewarding, but it was very hard. And I remember thinking, I wish someone would say to me, you've got talent to do this particular thing. And what I only ever heard was that you are one of the hardest working people I've ever met. But it didn't feel good hearing that. Yeah. But then I remember I left and decided that I would give writing a try. And I remember writing, and after a first month, I had a Sports Illustrated writer look at my work, see my work, and say, you have the talent to do this. Have you ever done this before? No. He goes, well, then you have talent, because this is good work. And I remember being angry. Because it was like I worked so hard doing one thing, and then ended up, this one thing that I did seemed to come easy in the way that I wished someone said to me everything I wanted to hear as a musician, I heard as a writer at 22, 23 years old.
Yeah.
But it's funny because it worked out well. I'm very happy with what I'm doing, though it took me a while to come to terms with that as well. But that's a longer story.
Yeah.
And I'm relating this story because a guy that we are watching today, Cam Erving, has kind of got the same thing that you and I, as peas from the same pod, because he was a tackle to start his career, and he still has played some tackle this year. But as you mentioned, they moved him to guard, and the light bulb just came on, and probably saved his career. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, and why we're watching Cam Erving?
Well, they moved him to center, and
center. Did I say guard? I did.
Yeah, they moved him, right? But the thing is that he wasn't a bad tackle, but there were issues with his control of speed and space, and if you need evidence of that, you can look at the Vic Beasley tape against Florida State from 2014, and it's not pretty. And, it just, to me, I want to say I gave him around a 4th-round grade as a tackle, and he struggles with speed, and it just, out in the big area, he just looked like he didn't play with a lot of confidence. Although effort's there, everything that you wanted to see is there, everything you need is there. It's just, I just think that, for a player like him suited to, maybe playing in smaller areas, struggling with the bigger space out on the edge, and they kick him inside, and it was almost instant. It was just like, wow. I remember watching it and watching the first half and thinking to myself, and I'm not being upset because I don't mind writing reports, but thinking, I got to rewrite the whole thing, because it was just so different, and he plays like I would tell you that he looked tentative into and through contact as a tackle, and he always looked like he was worried about getting beat with speed, to where sometimes he would overset and then get beat inside, which I'm sure was very, very frustrating for him. But going inside, he looks like a guy who's playing with supreme confidence, like a guy who doesn't have to, who knows that I don't have to worry about the speed anymore because I've got a guard on either side of me. And I think the lessons that he learned as a tackle about using his hands and what they can do for him, punching, doing it in accurate, doing it with timing. He's learned so much as a tackle that he's now transferring it as a center, and it just works for him.
Yes.
And there's a marked difference in what he is as a player from a tackle, where I think he would have been, a day 3 kind of player, to a center where I would say, I don't know if you want me to tell people what I think now because we're going to watch the tape.
Sure.
I don't want to taint it, but I think he's, because of the versatility and what he can offer for your 53-man roster and your 46-man game day roster. He's a late first-round player, and with the versatility to play either guard position, to be an emergency tackle, to be one of the more athletic centers right away in the game. That's where he is for me.
Well, Sam Shields and Richard Sherman, certainly as wide receivers, weren't first-round prospects, and certainly Richard Sherman certainly would have been a first-round prospect now. And I think that that it's just a great testament that if you've ever in your life have experienced hardship or struggle in one thing, and it just suddenly clicks for you in something else, whether it is finally meeting your wife or husband, to finally getting that job that where everything just works out and everything's working, or figuring out that major that you have in school where you're like, I struggled, I couldn't do this, that, or the other, I failed in so many areas. My editor wanted to be an engineer at Purdue, and he nearly failed out of school. And by the time he finished his school career as a journalist, he had a job with Sports Illustrated. When he got out, and it was just a revelation. And I think you're going to find with Cam Erving that it's the same thing, moving from tackle to center.
And the other thing too is that it's a little bit like Frodo in the Ring. Not to get all geeky, the reality is that they probably saved his career moving him. And while I'm sure it wasn't easy for a guy who played tackle for that many years to accept, you're getting kicked inside all the way to center. Right? He welcomed it. I'm sure it wasn't something he wanted, but he welcomed it, and he's thriving. So, there's some lesson there, too.
There's multiple players like this. We can go as far back as Roy Green and Robert Edwards, as players from the past who were completely different position players who ended up being great, or even Hines Ward, who when I came to school and I was covering him a little bit as a student writer, he came as a running back. He played wide receiver. He played quarterback. He played quarterback with his jaw wired shut as a senior.
Yeah.
So it's a very different situation. So we're going to watch the tape. If you're new to this show, it's just basically two guys studying some film. It's going to be on half speed. We're using Draft Breakdown, which is just a wonderful and invaluable resource for doing this type of work. And just whether it's writing and providing clips and references to things that we can break down for people to see on our websites and blogs, to being able to do shows like this. So I would encourage you to go there and check it out if you are interested in studying players or seeing highlights. They're terrific. So with that in mind, we're going to watch this in that half speed. We're just going to talk about what we see. We may go off on tangents here and there, talking about the position, talking about football in general, the art of evaluation, the craft that goes behind it, and about Cam Erving himself and maybe some of his opposition. So that's what we're going to do. Let me bring this up and make sure that my buddy Scott here can see what we're going to be looking at. And you got it? You able to see what we have going on?
I got it.
Yep. All right. So let's get this puppy rolling.
So the first thing that I see, and it's tough to see that half speed, is that he times his release from the line of scrimmage, understanding how much time he needs to give the quarterback to throw the screen. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, let's watch it full speed. We'll watch it.
So you see him use his right arm, and he gives a little bit of a push on the guy playing right over him, and then he just releases from the line of scrimmage. I don't know. Again, it's tough to know exactly what their scheme is, what they're being taught to do, but you can see right there he's looking. He's got his head around. He's finding the ball. He's in the perfect position. He's at the second level, right? I mean, I know that Winston's taking a hit there, but I think that's part of the lure of the play. So, I mean, I like that.
I do
like
too.
to see a guy who times that perfectly.
And there's good depth because what he's doing here, I mean, you have to sell what you're doing, and by selling it is you're trying to influence the defender to go to a certain side and pick a side that you want him to go to.
Yes.
And he sets up, uses that arm, and forces the defender to declare a move and to declare a side. Once that happens, then I like that it's not just about getting depth into the area where you're going to block, but it's also about getting to the area, getting outside, and getting into the clear so that you can be a lead blocker.
Yes. Yeah. And while he misses on the block out in space, and you can clearly see he's not happy, he does. The fact that he's out there, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a tough play to make. I think I'm not sure who it is that makes the play and gets by him, but I think he surprises him with his quickness. But if we're talking about a center who's just moved to the position, that's a nice play. Now,
yeah. And the other thing that's nice about this too is you got to understand he can't get too far downfield.
No.
Before the pass is thrown, or it's a penalty. So you're looking at him. He's looking back at the quarterback to gauge when the ball's being thrown, and that's at the same time where he's got the defender coming downhill. And as soon as he turns around, he sees that the defender is, shooting through this gap here at a high speed. It's just not going to happen.
Yeah, and he's just a touch late. But like you said, if he's there any sooner, it may be he may have drawn a penalty, and you don't want to do that.
Yeah, and that's Perriman, and Perriman is certainly a guy that if he has a recognizable gap to shoot, he's going to do it fast. So
yes, he is. Now this one's another intriguing snap because if we look at, I mean, one of the things that you have to do as a center is you got to have your head on a swivel. You have to recognize where pressure is coming from. Everybody wants to be able to point out what they're doing pre-snap. I think that's a tough thing to do. It's tough for me to figure out what they're calling out. Obviously, there's nothing overloaded there, right?
Right.
But right away, he's up out of his set, right? And that right hand is instantly with leverage right on that guy, on the guy who's playing the shade on between the, what is he, a one technique there?
Yeah.
And if we watch his head here, his arm stays right in the middle of that guy's chest for another maybe 2 yards of depth, but he's watching for other things. And that's the value in this play, is that he's recognizing, all right, if there's a blitz coming through my left-hand side, I have to be responsible for that too. So that's what I see out of that play.
Yeah, that's good vision for a center. I mean, that's really what you're looking for here is and he's multitasking in this sense. So
yeah, I mean, you can see him. He's still reaching back there, and when he recognizes, all right, nobody's blitzing, I have no other responsibilities. All right, I'm going to now push him past the pocket.
Yeah. That's a wonderful play.
It really is. That's one of those things where you look at it, and you say that's a savvy play for a center.
Yes. And if you haven't watched any of our offensive line shows, like the one that I would recommend the most probably right now is the Lance Zierlein one, where we talk about, one arm gives you that leverage and it's good technique where he's got his feet planted on the ground. But there's also one of the other values of this with offensive linemen is that oftentimes you have your technique of what you're doing, and then you have your kind of your fail-safe options where, the lights go out, the sirens start blaring, and it's time to just have little tricks up your sleeve that you need to be able to do to just make the play work. And we're going to start, and I'm sure we're going to see some of that from Erving as an offensive lineman throughout this game. And that, to me, looks like there's good trust in terms of what he's doing with the, he knows that he's trusting his backfield mate to make the adjustment on this blitz.
Yes. And he's got his guy walled off. He does a good job of keeping his guy completely out of the lane.
Yeah. And you've got a guy with, with tackle athleticism, maybe not pro tackle athleticism, but certainly tackle like athleticism playing center.
Yep. And here you get a little bit of push off the ball. You get some arm leverage again. You get some movement off the ball. Creating lanes for the back.
And he is quick off the ball. I mean, again, he is the center, so he should know. But still.
Yeah, I mean, he's one of the first guys moving. You can see his helmet moving before everybody else, and he's up out of his stance.
Hands are really good position right away.
Yep.
And he's able to drive. I mean, let's see if he gets. See where his hand. If we can see his feet when he gets his hand. I mean, his feet seem to be on the ground, and you saw the hips go up a little bit. He's rolling his hips into that contact, which is creating that force. He's combative. It's good.
Yeah, playing with good leverage, good pad level, good leverage, good, everything you want to see. Now I love that play, and just being able to get inside Perryman there at the second level, because there's really not much for him to do with this right here, and some centers would be happy just holding their ground and not really, all right, I've got both A gaps covered, we're set, but he's not settled there. He wants to find a target in the second level.
Yeah.
And he goes and he turns Perryman, and he actually, I mean, if the back were to clear that, that could have been a big play.
Yeah. And honestly, you may look at this, oftentimes it's easy to look at this the first time and go, well, he overran Perriman a little bit, and maybe Perriman would have gotten through. But if there were no defenders pursuing this, and Williams is able to get up to full speed, I think it's Williams, get up to full speed here, he probably still splits this and doesn't.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's definitely a good play. I like how he's got his, that stance. He's got both arms out like, who am I going to catch? It's almost like he's the filter of the offensive line here.
Yeah, and the other thing is interesting, too, is if you follow Florida State at all, you recognize how quickly and instantaneously how much better that interior line was with him as a center.
Yeah. He's accounting for the twist that they have going on here. And then when it gets out of his range, and he doesn't, and he knows that's his only assignment, he does follow. This is just good discipline, good recognition and discipline, and it looks like this is going to be a consistent theme with him.
Yeah.
So what are some things about center play that makes what he does or what a center does different from what you would expect from, say, a tackle or a guard?
Well, I think everything happens quicker, right? So generally you've got somebody either on a shoulder or right on top of you. First thing that you have to have is clearly you have to be a powerful player to play inside. If you're getting how do I explain it? If you're getting caved in every snap and a quarterback can't step up, you can't climb the ladder and make a throw, climbing up into the pocket, that's a problem. So you have to have enough core strength. You have to be able to roll your hips and maintain, against a guy who's going to be leaning on you right away. That's why for him, one of the things that I think he does well is he's up out of his stance quicker than everybody else, and he's into contact before these guys can really get going. I think if we watch this play, he's gonna make contact with this defender, and really, he's negated him already. And I mean, that's a half a stride.
Yeah.
And he's so quick up and out of his stance to initiate contact. Well, right there, it's not like he's pushing the guy 4 or 5 yards down the field, but that guy's not making a play.
No.
Right. And so you've got that. I think that you have to be able to handle the stunts and the twists. and you have to be able to recognize what the games are. You have to be able to know what your responsibility is in those things, and I think that he's shown that pretty regularly in everything I've seen of him as a center. That he's a savvy player. He understands what his role is, what his responsibility is, to kind of maintain the integrity of the interior of the line first and foremost. So I think that he's very athletic for a center. He's quick. I think he has good hands. I think he's accurate with his punch, and it's everything that you want to see. Plus you see him get to the second level, like we saw the first play on that screen pass, and then the play against Perryman. Those are things that most centers are not going to be able to do.
Yeah, and I mean, like this play I love because you see the feet. He keeps that first right inside foot to the ground, steps outside so he gets his base.
Yep.
And then he's able to deliver that punch with his hips up. This is perfect. And while you might go, well, the play wasn't going towards him, you got to remember, you got to look at the context of this play, because you have a pulling guard coming across, and you need to have enough space in this area of the field that I'm circling for the running back to be able to set up these blocks. If he's got number 47 fooling the works here in this protected area, he's not going to be able to set up his blocks. These defenders on the outside and in the middle are going to know that and know that he's stuck. They know where he's going. They're not going to take any false moves, most likely. And
I mean, he has to give enough room for the guard to be able to get around the corner.
Yeah, and he does that enough so that you could see a little bit of a press inside and push outside. Now, is this a big play?
No, it's a great play by Perryman, because it's going to be a big play.
Yeah, but it's still from the responsibility of what Erving does, he gives that back every opportunity from what he's supposed to do to make the play successful, and the technique is very nice.
Now here's another one where you can see the athletic. It doesn't work, but you can see him. You can see him take care of his responsibility.
Yep. Right.
Hand him off, and recognize. Oh, and this is where maybe there's a sense that he has. How does he know the ball gets thrown behind him there?
Yeah.
But he knows.
Yeah. No, this is fine. It's fine work, and and you would think how he knows. I would think would be. I mean, certainly there's different contingencies to this type of play call right here.
Yeah.
But he also knows that this is a possibility, and he probably sees the reaction of other players, and probably has, and it's an intuitive feel for what's going on.
Yeah, I mean, but we're talking about a guy who's very new to the position to already have an intuitive feel.
Yeah.
That's a very good thing.
Yes, and that's a terrific point, Scott. It really is, because if it just rings true. We're talking about advanced concepts here for a new player.
Now that snap was a little low.
And that's true.
It's not. I mean, it's not super low. Hits him in the hands.
Yeah.
But still, it's not a perfect snap.
Right. And it'll be something, I would imagine. I would imagine you've watched a lot of his games. Is that a common thing, or?
It's not. It's not. Okay. He's really good. It's one of the things that he was very reliable right away, snapping the ball.
That's great. Yeah, I mean, that's at knee level.
Yeah. It's a touch low. Yeah. But you're not going to kill him for that.
No. And it's also a combination of it being a touch low and Jameis having that kind of lean back kind of footwork that he does oftentimes. Yeah. And he doesn't like to bend his knees very much or bend the hips very much for some reason.
See, here he is again. He's got that arm outside, ready to roll. He's ready for contact. Look where his right arm is, right there.
Yeah.
And his feet are planted into the ground. The way I've described it to other people before is as an offensive lineman makes contact, you want to think of him like a tree, right? And if a tree has got a lot of depth of roots, they're very difficult to get out of the ground, right?
Yeah.
But ones that don't, especially if you attack them high, they come out of the ground pretty quick. I don't know if that makes any sense what I'm saying, but
it does.
He's anchored to the ground via his feet. He's strong. He's using his hips, but that hand action right away just nullifies that guy.
Yeah. No, that's great work. I mean, he's definitely not a Georgia Pine in this particular case. And if you don't know anything about Georgia Pines, I can tell you that they snap and they fall and they come out of the ground very easily. You do not want them
Widowmakers,
near
right?
your house. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
He's more oak. Though Gene Bramall wants pine trees, I keep telling him he doesn't want any pine trees.
They're
But
beautiful.
he's a defensive guy anyway. He probably wants to see lots of pine trees. So
That's not a real good throw.
nah.
That's another story.
Yeah.
So Erving here's got. I love this play. He's got Bobby Hart to his right. He's engaged, and he recognizes very quickly that, we have a blitzer, and my guy's beat. And he's got the footwork and the quicks to get there. Now, it's not a big area he's covering, but he still does his job.
Well, it's big enough that he's got a pretty good spread of his legs here to have to get there, which is a nice flexibility for a big man, and he corrects his stride enough just before the contact so that, like you said, he can set those roots in place.
Yes, and look at that contact. That plays over for that blitzer.
Yeah, yeah.
And I'm not saying Erving's a monster, a mauler, or any of that. Just technically he's really, really sound.
Yeah. And he's only, most of these guys athletically are only going to get better when they get to the NFL.
Yeah. Yeah, you would hope.
Yeah.
One of the things with him is that he's a decent enough athlete that he started as a tackle there for quite a while. We're not concerned about his athleticism at all as a center. If anything, I think he'll be one of the more athletic centers in the game.
Yeah. So who are offenses that would benefit from somebody who's an athletic center like this? Is that a dumb question and say everyone, or are there specific teams that you would go, they could really use a center like this, or they run certain types of scheme that really would benefit from someone who can run the screen game, who can.
Yeah, I mean, I think you want your center to be athletic. He's going to be very athletic coming in, but I think if you look at teams around the league that run, screen passes and delayed type plays where where you got to get your lineman out to the second level quickly, he'd be very effective for those teams. For any team that wants realistically an extra blocker, because most centers aren't going to give you a lot of what he's going to give you at the second level, right?
Right. So I would think like Philadelphia, who does a lot of that kind of stuff, would probably be a.
Yeah, I mean they have a pretty athletic one themselves already.
Yeah, so they don't need that.
I mean, think you look at what Cleveland does with their center, and give you a kind of a blueprint for what he can be going forward.
Yeah. I mean, that's nice right there. That's quick, right where you want him. And, I mean, the defender barely has even gotten off the line, and he's getting driven well into the right side of it, well out of the play.
Yeah, for sure. Now, that's a little bit of a stretch play where it's already – he's got the benefit of the defender going that way already. I mean, he's just leaning in on – he's kind of blocking down, but still, he's got enough power to push and to get him out of that hole.
Yeah. And he was quicker off the ball than his opponent. I mean, much quicker.
Yeah, it's one of the things that you'll see regularly is he's quicker than everybody else. I mean, that one right there, you could see it. His head's moving before anybody else's. Now, I know he's the center, right? But it's more he's up out of his stance and ready to roll before the defenders are ready to go. So he's initiating contact.
Excellent point.
Does a real nice job there of negating that at the line of scrimmage.
Absolutely. And that's kind of an interesting play too, because you almost could see where he might consider going he's got to work well with his guard to figure out
Yeah.
who's going to be going to the second level here and who's going to stay with the guy.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think that centers naturally have to do really well is work in concert with the guys next to them.
There's
Um,
this nice second level block.
yeah, yeah. That's centers don't. That's rare for a center to get out there that quick. I mean, he's out there before the back gets the ball.
Yeah, yeah. Let's go back to, let's see if we, yep, there he is, right past the line of scrimmage. There's the mesh point. One step later, still getting the ball, and
Yep.
he's already making contact. So by the time this runner is even going to get to the hole, the center has got him out towards the tackle. That's the first down right there.
Yep.
And he knows it.
Oh yeah. I mean, he's walking like a dog.
He's admiring his work,
Yep.
and he should. I haven't heard that in a while, walking like a dog.
So he's quick here.
So what do we have here? It looks like, I mean, because it seems like he's getting, the design was to go to this side.
Yeah, I think number 93 on defense makes a really nice play here. Kind of splits the gap between number 54 and Cam Erving, number 75, and they just can't clear him. So
Yeah.
between number 71 and number 93, they just can't clear that space.
Yeah.
And I think Erving's responsibility in that play was to get number 93 blocked down, and he just couldn't. The mass of humanity was too big for him to move him, so
Yeah.
he stayed there.
He just was never able to get quite across to the opposite shoulder
Right.
to really deliver. His head's down, but his head comes down like underneath the inside part of the defender's chin.
Yeah, and I think the running back just runs it up the guard's back, and
Yeah,
it's just a nice play by those two defensive tackles.
absolutely.
Now here's one where he gets beat a little bit.
He was expecting 70 to stay with his man, it looked like.
Yes, yes. But that's a situation where you would say, what else should he have been doing in that play? It's nitpicking, but it's still, there's really nobody else for him to worry about.
Yeah.
He should have been there. You know what I mean? He should have. If he would have taken a little deeper drop, I think he could have made that play. I'm not totally blaming him, but there is some, as a center, you want to make contact. You want to be doing something.
Yeah, and the only guy I can imagine him even looking at is this linebacker who's most likely, going to be covering the running back, and he might have been looking to that. But
to be honest, I'm not sure what number 70, truly is doing on that play, because the guy he goes after is already blocked.
Yeah.
But for the sake of what we're doing, I think that you could say, if you're a coach and that play kills you. I mean, this one doesn't, but if it does, your quarterback takes a big hit, you're going to say, yeah, we really need you to step in there and prevent that from happening.
Yeah.
Now, this is one-armed beauty.
Yeah, look at that.
Yeah.
Two players coming inside.
One arm.
Yeah, and the reason that one arm is so good, I would imagine here too, is that he is trying to help out his teammate at guard, so that when they both try to rush this lane, that he protects that inside shoulder for the guard.
Yes. Yeah, he's protecting the A gap.
Yeah.
That's the priority.
And and it gives them an opportunity to at least try and make a play. I don't know if it's me looking into this too deeply, or I notice that he seems to always have his eyes on the linebackers, even once he's engaged,
Mm-hmm.
to kind of get a read. Because right here, I'm watching him, but I get the sense he's watching this linebacker
Oh,
here.
yeah, and he's ready to bounce off of that man to handle the blitzer.
Yeah, it's nice awareness. That's what
Yeah,
he's
I mean
supposed to do. But
that situational stuff is so valuable, and it's unheralded stuff. That not a lot of people are going to look at that and say, yeah, we really like that. But I can promise you, his quarterback and his coaches would love it if that blitzer's coming and he's ready for him.
yeah, because this is with every football player, and this is something that I think that I've talked a lot about, and one of the major lessons I'm learning from doing is having interactions with you and all the other guests that we have on this show is there's task-oriented thinking and there's strategic thinking. And task-oriented thinking is I'm just going to block my man because that's what's assigned to me. And strategic thinking is what else do I need to be looking out for to help our team?
Yes.
And he has that strategic thinking embedded into his play. It doesn't mean
And
he's not
point.
going to make task-oriented plays and mistakes, but on the whole, he's thinking broader than just his job.
Yeah, and you can see on that play, at the end of that play, he's pointing. He's there. There's communicating happening. There's, I think it's at the end of this play where well, let's just watch it
Yeah. Yep.
right there. So I don't know what he's pointing at. I don't know if he's trying to help his quarterback.
Or call a penalty or get the
Something.
official.
He could be. Hey, that guy's
He
getting
might be
held.
lobbing the official, yeah. But I'm not sure what.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. But just good position, keeping that inside position throughout. That's nice.
Yeah, we had a blitzer kind of come in through the area he vacated, so I'm kind of curious as to
Yeah.
where that how that come about. I mean, he is occupied.
And it is supposed to be a screen
Yeah,
or a release to that side. So
yeah, that's a play where I would say that maybe that's a miss for him.
yeah, it might be.
You got to hand that guy off and handle the blitz.
And he didn't look very confident in being able to get that handoff there.
No,
Takes
he's
that
turned his hips the wrong. He's
and as we noticed, his one arm technique been his right arm or his left arm most of the time?
I want to say it's been his right arm.
It has. Okay, because I've seen a right and a left arm. So, yeah, he probably could have done that with this play maybe a little earlier. I don't know.
Yeah.
He certainly didn't seem confident about his position on that man, and that sealed it for him. So, yeah, I might try to be able to be his defense attorney on that one, but I don't think I'd have a winning case.
Yeah. And
That's
there you
better.
go. Yes. That again, situational awareness, that instant recognition of all right, let's block down, and we have a blitzer, and quick hips, quick turn, and it stones them.
And we're talking him doing helping out on three defenders here. You've got the one right here,
Yep.
hands him off to 54, goes out to the left guard, gets a hand on the shoulder there, and boom.
Yep. That's a great point. 3 guys he blocked in that one play.
Yeah. And that's why oftentimes you'll talk to a guy like a Rick Sundquist, and he'll say that center is probably the most important position to the offensive line, not tackle, because of that communication, because of the ability to cover, help out in so many different ways. You're kind of like the offensive line's rover.
So I think we've seen one play where he's had some footwork that I would say was maybe an issue, and that was the play a few snaps ago.
Yeah.
Other than that, good footwork, good aggression, good timing.
So talk about a little bit about the value of, watching multiple games with a player. Why is it something that you guys at GM Junior emphasize, and why it's good advice to really anybody who is interested in evaluating players?
Well, I mean, in some cases, it's as simple as, what if you watch a guy and he has a really, really bad day, right? Or conversely, what if you watch a guy and he has a great day? And sometimes you have to watch you have to see a bunch of reps over and over and over to see what really is happening. I mean, I think that I know there's some guys out there who don't agree, and that's fine. We'd like to get a full picture. So we want to see, against different opponents, different types of opponents. I mentioned it before we started this. What do they have on their D line? This is a very attacking defense, and they do a lot of blitzing, a lot of stunting, and that kind of stuff. So it's intriguing. We're going to watch and see what he does there, but they don't have a lot of power up front. Wow, look what Perryman does to him right there. Wow.
Yeah. Because he gets his head 75. Erving gets his head down a little bit on that one. Tries to load up or protect himself. It depends on what. I don't know which one it is.
He's probably trying to protect himself, and he gets blasted.
Yeah.
Now that's Perryman at his finest, right?
Yes, because this is the best game. Downhill. This is the best Perryman game I have seen, actually. I've been underwhelmed by Perryman, and this game shows me more of why people like him. Yeah, he's coming downhill. He's a monster. Yeah. But you get him turned away and running away from the line of scrimmage, and you have problems. Exactly. So enough athleticism on that play to turn to get moved out to the corner, but I would say in that case he was physically overmatched. Yeah. And I think part of that was a little correctable, but the other part was just simply he saw a freight train coming. Uh-huh. Yeah, it made a long-term smart decision. Yeah. See, on this play, I like what he does on this play because he maintains the integrity of that line throughout the play. He even gets a little bit off balance right about here. He gets a little short step in there. Yeah. But he's right there. Yeah. Good team play. Yep. Holding his own. Yeah. Gets a little help, but does, nice job with his hands there. There's that second level. Yeah. Gets him turned. Gets to another guy a little nasty going there. Yeah. Once again, one-arm technique with the right arm. He is always looking ahead. That's nice. Yeah. And he's not going to plow anybody off their feet, but it's not Greg Robinson from last year, but it's effective. Yeah. He's going to be a valuable player. He's going to be a valuable player to a team. Yeah. I took some heat when I first was telling, a few months ago when I was talking about that transition to center, putting him, late day one, and he's just a center, But what he does in the field and the versatility to play guard either spot and emergency as a tackle, I think there's so much value there. Yeah. He'll be a smart pick. Won't be a sexy pick, but it'll be a pick that really helps the team. Certainly helped the Cowboys when they picked a center. Was it in the first round or the second round? First round, Travis Frederick, yeah. Yeah, there are a lot of questions about that from some fans and some media. But look at what DeMarco Murray did. Too. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, like right there, he's got his arms extended. He's playing with leverage. He's playing with power.
He's able to reload and
Right there. Yeah, he's got his guy stymied at the line of scrimmage. That's perfect technique.
yeah.
He's not getting bent backwards, which I think is, I like to see the hips roll like that and be able to handle and maintain that contact and to reset and re-anchor without really getting bent a little bit.
Yeah. It's nice.
Now this
almost looks like he was expecting it. He thought he was supposed to do something different than what.
Yeah, he's able to turn the defensive tackle, and it's perfect with his footwork. And I don't know if the back takes a step the wrong way because there's a hole there.
Yeah. I've seen this back before, and I wouldn't be surprised if you're exactly right about that.
Yeah, I mean, there's penetration there though. So that guy, the defender's upfield. It just makes me wonder because he executed that step so perfectly and turned him right there.
Yeah. And
he lets him go.
Yeah, and Winston and the back seem a little off kilter with what they're supposed to be doing here. This looks like it's just the play is a blown play. I
think it's supposed to be a little bit of a speed sweep type of play, and it just fails.
Just really good discipline with where he's supposed to be to provide a redundancy plan for his guards.
Yeah, he's very reliable.
More one arm, then back to the guy on the left. Yeah, he just switches trades off, does good work there.
Now, does his man on that play bat that pass? Because that's one thing you would like to see. See how the guy gets his arm up, the defender that he's blocking?
Yeah, but I don't think it was him. I think it was actually the linebacker. Let's see. Yeah, the linebacker, he missed that, and the hand got up, but not too far.
Boy, where is Winston throwing that ball?
Yeah.
Oh.
I watched this play earlier, about a couple days ago, actually. I was watching Carlos Williams again, and I saw this recently. He's getting walked back a little bit.
Yep.
But he doesn't, again, I mean, he stays tough, and really it draws a face mask penalty. If, instead of this being an easy sack, because it's walled off, I mean, the effort's there. He's fighting hard. And number 11's like, I'm almost there, and he ends up getting frustrated.
Yeah, and you can see him get bent back a little bit on that play.
Yeah.
That's a case where I think he's too slow to initiate.
Yeah.
And he allows the defender into his chest, and that's why he gets walked back.
Let's see if we can see that one more time here.
Right there.
Yeah.
See where the defender's hands are?
Yeah.
And now the defender is going to extend his arms, and he's going to walk him back right there.
Yeah. And you feel that's because he was slow there. Yeah. He's waiting. It's like he took a step back, and then when he did to extend, he's like, I'm not even there yet.
Yeah.
And so his feet and his arms were out of sorts for this play to really work for him.
Yep. But I mean, he redirects, he re-anchors, he redirects. He gets back in there.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, it's not like where he just gets plowed over and blown up and it's a sack.
No, it's in fact they get the first down and a face mask penalty.
Oh boy.
Man, that is a mass of humanity in there.
See, that's the thing, is that the guy who walked him back is a giant.
Yeah.
I mean, as much as we want to say he's reliable and all that stuff, there are going to be times when, the 340, 350 pounders are going to be able to walk these guys back a touch.
Yeah, Wolfork on that play, or a Raji, or some of
Looks a
these
little
other
bit like
guys.
Danny Shelton, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or the quick explosive guys, a Donald, or
Yeah.
an Atkins. Another nice second level. That's very
Yep.
nice. Barely even not even outside the hash yet. And he's already there.
And he stays on him.
Yeah.
Yeah, his guy makes the play. But,
It's it leads to a 3rd and 4, a very manageable play.
yeah, and the fact that he's out at the second level that quick, it's impressive.
Yeah. It's consistent.
So we've
So I,
seen no more snap issues.
no,
Pretty accurate to snap.
none at all.
Yeah, he's very reliable.
So so what would be your argument to somebody who says you don't take a center in the first round?
Um, well, I mean, I guess it would depend on, what a team's needs were and what their situation was, at in other areas. But I would argue that as athletic as he is, right, his ability to do everything that you need to do as a center, but then to get to the second level, give you an extra blocker. I think that there's some things that you could do with him on offense that you won't be able to do with a traditional center,
Yeah.
with the guy who can't get to the second level. He's a different kind of to me he's a different kind of a play. He's a playmaker at the center position, which if we look in the NFL right now, you look at the teams that have good centers who are able to do some things. Look at what kind of offenses they have, right?
Yeah.
So there's that, and then there's the versatility of being able to play either guard position and to be your emergency tackle, which really helps you manage your roster, especially on game day. There's so many reasons why I would make that argument. And plus, I think his talent level is he's got elite talent level for the position,
Yeah.
right? So there's a lot of argument you can make. One of the things that I think that you look at people who traditionally look at the center position and just kind of dismiss what they do as they're just guys who snap the ball. You know, I think when you look at a guy like Cam Erving, a guy who does everything that you want him to do and more, there's more there than just. I mean, I look at the Detroit Lions and what they've had for the last 10 years and Dominic Raiola. I can't tell you, I can't remember a time when they had their center get out to the second level and really help. You know what I mean? So
Yeah, and imagine the running backs that they had that could have really benefited from that.
yes, yeah. So I mean, he gives you've added a blocker on the interior. I think there's a crazy amount of value for him late in round one, as opposed to a guy who's just going to play guard for you. I mean, there's a lot more there.
Yeah. I mean, Javid Best and Reggie Bush running middle screens, and you have a center that can't get to the second level.
Yeah.
That's kind of like having a Ford without an engine.
Can you imagine?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's a team that I think would really benefit from a guy like Erving.
Yeah. No, that's a great point, and I'm certainly not a believer that certain positions go in certain rounds, but I think your argument is a very good one. That it's just he's an exceptional player for his position because he offers more than what you traditionally get.
Yeah.
That's a very strong explanation for that.
Well, he's a playmaker. I mean, he's a game-changing player at that position. Most teams don't have a player like that inside.
Yeah. No, definitely good stuff.
Yep. Yeah, he's very stout on that play.
Yeah.
Here we get some movement.
Yeah.
and and he knows it again.
Uh huh. But you like that. He plays with an edge, plays with an attitude.
Yeah, yeah, especially there,
Yeah.
inside there, absolutely. Here he is, second level.
Nice job.
Oh,
Nothing, very nice job getting to that. Once he sees his opponent commit,
yep. He gets enough depth moving backwards to bait his guy,
yeah,
right? And just kind of clears him and is out at the second level. On that play, you were able to see him turn that defensive tackle.
yeah. And he's very decisive. He knows this blitzer's coming. You saw him look out of the corner of that helmet there.
Yeah.
You see the slightest turn. Let's see if we can get back there. It'll come
Boy,
up
that's a
in a
nice
minute
play by
here.
Harriman right there. Jeez.
Yeah. Watch right there. He was looking and then turns back.
But again, you have to rely. I mean, it's one of those things in football. You can only do your job. You have to rely upon your
Yeah.
teammates to do their job.
Yeah. A center is often kind of like your manager of a. He's like your immediate supervisor of a manufacturing line. You know, he may have his own job that he's got to do, but he's got to kind of watch over everybody else a little bit too.
Yeah.
Make sure there's some redundancy in place. And he definitely shows that eye for detail and that eye for what's going on around in his immediate area. That's very patient. We don't see him getting where he's going at that point, but
you understand why he's doing what he's doing, though.
Yeah. Very logical playing. And this is an excellent play. This is beautiful because look, you've got these two defenders you've got a defender working outside, and then you have a second defender blitzing here. He knows he's not going to get anything here. He's not going to go there. He's not going down a fool's errand here. He gets to the point where he makes sure that these guys do go outside, keeps his arm to the outside shoulder or the inside shoulder of this defender, and then when it's time that he knows the area's been cleared, he picks up that man so he can give 54 a chance to take on that defensive tackle, and that gives Winston all that room to be able to get the first down.
And that's just such a perfect play in unison with his teammates.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's pretty.
And it's all about transition points. And you can see the transition points step by step with this play. And it's just, it's a very instructive play if you want to know how you pass players off. Punch, and then anticipating the second guy with his arm already on the player and just guiding himself, maintaining that gap integrity to protect it, and then picking up the player at the right time.
Yeah, I would. That's perfect. That's a big play.
Yeah. Now it's a holding that we end up getting called back, but
yeah, we'll disregard that.
Yeah, we'll disregard that. But from a process standpoint, that's perfect.
And here we go, second level.
Yeah.
Look at how far he is out there.
Yeah.
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 And in a perfect world, you would have loved for him to have recognized that. I think he got a little too far out.
Yeah.
But if you consider what he's doing now, at least he's turned around and he's looking to find the ball where the other players are just running.
Yeah.
So I think you're looking at a guy with some instincts to understand, all right, I got to find where the ball is so I can help.
Yeah.
At least that's what I see there.
I think I see that, and I also think he he holds himself to a higher standard than what happened here, and he's actually mad at himself for getting in the way
Yes.
of the runner. He's not just satisfied with I got downfield like I was supposed to. He's like, I just missed an opportunity to block number 56. Now I'm going to try and make up for that. Here's 93. Oh, great. Now there's 52.
Yeah. And if I get 52, that might go the distance.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And now it's like, I don't think he's hurt. I mean,
No,
he did get
sure
he got swiped, but I think that's more like, oh, God, what a mess I just made of this play. Because here we go, next play. He's fine.
Yeah, that's a great block on 56.
Yep.
And we'll see how quickly he gets out there. He hands off the guard. He's out to the second level. Good timing.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yep. And it's just rare to see centers who are able to do that kind of thing.
Yeah. He's definitely found his element.
Makes a nice block there. He drives him off the line of scrimmage, and
now we have what I think amounts to the game winner in this game.
Yeah, look right there. That's nice.
Yeah. And that clears that cutback lane for the back there.
Yep.
Now he does a lot of that on his own.
Oh, yeah. Is that Delvin Cook?
I believe it is.
Yeah.
So,
good luck.
Yeah, definitely good stuff.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was definitely enlightening stuff to see, and I loved how you talk about, handling the contingencies and the responsibilities and why he's rare. And I think that you did a really good job of laying that out.
You saw him as against Beasley earlier this year, right?
We did. We saw him. Justice Mosqueda and I did an RSP Film Room on Beasley, and we talked about Erving, and he certainly did not look comfortable in that game, and I think it would be hard to look comfortable against Beasley in a lot of situations.
Yeah, for sure. But what we just saw, it's a totally different vibe you're getting from a player who looks supremely confident being the leader of that line.
Yeah.
And I think there's some if I'm meeting with him, if I'm a team and I'm meeting with him, I want to hear him talk about how it's important for him to be the leader of that unit, because it shows on film that he really thrives on that.
I think that's a great point, and I think you would expect after watching these two, because trust me, as we're watching the Beasley tape with Justice is trying to explain to me how much better Erving looks as a center, and it was like a parent trying to tell a child that what hot feels like. You just have to experience it, like it was kind of, you could tell he's like, you just had to be there, man. You had to be there when it happened like this. So I'm finally there and got a chance to really see it. I mean, I did see him do other work in other games and go, I get it, but this was a really nice detailed viewing of that for sure.
Yeah, he's special.
Yeah, absolutely. So folks, this was a fun episode, and again, you can subscribe to the RSP Film Room by going to YouTube and just looking up RSP Film Room, and that gives you a chance to get emails that update you as to which ones are going to come out each week, and watch the other 33 episodes that we have as you have time. Flip through them. And for Scott Bischoff, for GM Jr. and Footballguys, and Matt Waldman, we're out of here. Have a good weekend.
See you guys.